You join me for episode 2 of PH Project Car. We're turning this Mk5 Golf GTI into a track weapon for just £10,000. Now we've already spent £5,200 on the car, leaving us with £4,800 to spend on parts and accessories found on eBay. Here's the tricky bit though. We need to beat this thing, a Mk8 Golf R. Today we're on track to see what the gulf is between this and our completely stock Mk5 GTI, which we've done no work on. Well, apart from the bits we're about to do now, because before we get to all that, we need to check in with our PH expert to make sure that this thing doesn't blow up the moment we take it out on track. It's time to get our hands dirty. This is Banbury, home of motorsport giants such as ProDrive, the Haas Formula One team and, now, PH Project Car. We're at BRS Automotive, which is owned by this man, Pip Simcoe, who's owned several track builds including a 790 horsepower Audi RS6 and a Nissan GTR with up to 1,500 horsepower. Sounds like the perfect man for the job then. Pip, meet PH, PH, Pip. Now, first off, before we get to work, what's the story behind BRS Automotive and the name? Because your name's Pip, but it begins with a B.
So we opened July 2017. We started completely from scratch. So it was kind of an empty building. We put the ramps and stuff in. And then it got to the point where we're like, what are we going to do business name-wise? My initials are PNS and doesn't quite sound right when you say it quite quickly together. So we went with my dad's initials, which is BRS, which sounds a hell of a lot better.
Now, you've got loads of cars out here. It seems like you do all sorts of fixing cars and doing them up, but you've also got quite a lot of projects that you work on as well. You've got some really interesting stuff out the back.
So we've got a couple. We've got an S4 out the back. That's one that, I think it's one that had anyone else taken on. It was at the point with the customer, it was like, you need to chuck quite a lot of time and money at it. So do you keep it? Do you scrap it? Do you sell it for parts? Obviously, we've got all the time on our hands. We like doing stuff like that. So that's one that we've started. We've got like a little EP3 Civic that we're going to do, just build for somebody that maybe wants to take it on track. But effectively, what we do is we get them to a point where somebody else can add their finishing touches and kind of move on with it as such. So we do the, brakes, tyres, make sure they're safe, MOT them, that kind of stuff. At the same time, nice wheels, nice suspension, but then leave the details for the person that wants to buy it from us just to finish it off effectively.
Well, that's perfect, because that's exactly what we need for PH Project Car. Now, obviously, we've got a VW Golf GTI Mk5. You've worked on hundreds of these. What do we need to look out for? What are the common things that usually go wrong with these?
I mean, for the most part, these things are really, really good. They do have their common issues. The chains on the cams, they're quite common. Fuel pump follower, another one they wear through. That's one to always look out for. Pickups in the sump, they're quite common for getting blocked. And then carbon on the intake side, quite a big carbon build-up, but for the most part, they're a good solid car. Definitely a good platform to start with. Which
is exactly what we needed, really. So I think we need to get this jacked up and have a look underneath it and see what we're working with.
Sounds good to me. Let's do it.
Now we've got it up, the thing I was worried the most about was rust, because we've got a little bit of corrosion on the outside, but as far as I can see, it doesn't look like we've got any serious rust underneath the car. But Pip, you're the expert here, mate. Is there anything you've noticed that might be wrong with our GTI?
Let's have a look. It's all clean, to be fair. Nothing you wouldn't expect from one of these, especially for the age of the car.
Now we do know that it's completely stock, other than a Miltech exhaust system, but there's no other signs of modifications, right?
No, for sure. It's definitely on standard suspension. And then it's got a rear silence, obviously Miltech kind of middle back silencer system.
And what are you thinking corrosion-wise? Like I said, I can see this, it looks like there's a little bit of surface rust.
There is, but they all look like this. It doesn't matter what car you lift, it always looks a lot worse than it actually is. I mean,
right.
It is just surface corrosion. It's nothing I'd be overly concerned about. And yeah, like I say, I think everything you lift really, for the most part, looks like this anyhow, but she's dry underneath. There's no oil leaks or anything.
How about, is there any signs of a bodged job?
I think the only thing I can really see, there's a little bit of broken plastic here, not necessarily a bodged job, it's obviously caught the curb at some point, but at the rear there is this headlight levelling arm, and it looks like somebody has repaired that with some duct tape. But you know, it's nothing that can't be sorted easily.
Nothing too serious, right?
Not at all, no.
Yeah, I'd be a bit more concerned if it was literally the suspension arm that was being held up by duct tape, but as far as I can see, it looks like a pretty clean car, right?
It is, yes, yeah, good clean car. Few things before you go on track, I think. PCV valve for sure, diverter valve definitely. They've got like a rubber diaphragm in them, and these are so common for that diaphragm splitting, which will lose boost. So definitely worth checking that. And then I think sump off, let's make sure the pickup's good and clean, sump's clean, and then, yeah, sump off, reseal, good to go.
All right, then. I'll let you do the sump, and I'll make myself useful and go and order the rest of the bits off eBay. What we're here for is essentially a health check to make sure the GTI is track ready. Firstly, we're checking the oil pickup as it can get clogged with carbon and bits of metal. Luckily, it's completely clean on our GTI, though Pip thinks it's been looked at relatively recently. Meanwhile, the rubber seals on the DV or diverter valve are susceptible to wear and are cheap and easy to replace. The PCV or positive crankcase ventilation valve can get stuck open too, leading to misfires and oil leaks. Again, it's another straightforward swap, so we'll do it while we're here. This is Curborough, a tight, twisty sprint course that we thought would be the perfect place to see where the weaknesses lie in our Golf GTI. That, and it was quite a bit cheaper than a proper racetrack. Originally, the plan was to pit the GTI against the standard Mk8 Golf R, but VW didn't have any available, so it sent us this instead, a 20 years edition. Not only does it have more power than the base R at 333 horsepower, but it also gets torque vectoring and VW's Vehicle Dynamics Manager as standard. I wanted to drive both cars, but the bosses at PH said I'd drive the Golf R deliberately slowly, and they had a point. So instead, it'll be driven by professional racing driver and friend of PH, Charles Rainford. So Charles, last time we saw you, you were doing Enduro car with us in a Ford Ka back in 2020. Have you even done anything since then?
Well, just a little bit. I'm currently in my third season of the Porsche Carrera Cup GB. I was last year's Pro-Am champion as well.
Right.
I also managed to win 14 out of 16 races last year. So I've done a little bit. What about yourself?
Does Gran Turismo count?
I'm afraid not.
Okay, well then, absolutely nothing then. Well, it's all about to change because we're going to be on track today. So the way it's going to go down is we're going to start things off with an acceleration test. We're then going to do a braking test and finish things off with a lap time. And you're going to be in the Golf R. What do you think about it?
I think obviously it looks very mean. It's obviously a fantastic looking car. I'm not 100% sure on the blue accents personally, but I've never driven a Golf R before. So very much looking forward to driving it and giving it a go today.
Well, as you're our guest, here are the keys. You're up first. First up, an acceleration test. Now, timing gear is expensive and we'd rather put that money towards making our GTI faster. So instead, we're going to see how long it takes for the cars to complete a 100-metre sprint. Charles is up first and he benefits from all-wheel drive, launch control and a DSG.
We're on the brake. We're going to go on the throttle and let go. And across the line. That felt nice.
That's a 5.7 second run for Charles. Now it's the GTI's turn. I've only got the front wheels to power me along, and I've also got to shift gears myself. Oh, and I'm also 130 horsepower down. Let's just get to it and see how we do. So right, I'm going to do about 3,000 and go. Oh, that was a good launch. Good launch, here we go. And across the line doing about 60 miles an hour anyway. The GTI comes in at 7.6 seconds, which is nearly 2 seconds down on the Golf R. Not that we'll be doing standing starts for our track runs, but acceleration is crucial over such a technical track, and we've got some time to make up. Next, the brake test. It's a rolling start from 60 miles per hour before hitting the anchors at the start-finish line. Charles is up first again, and while his brakes are much better, the R's nearly 200 kilograms heavier than our GTI.
There we go, 60 miles an hour. And we're going to brake at the line in 3, 2, 1. Hey, not bad.
That's 40. 60, really hope the brakes don't fail, and there's the white line. Oh. That's about just over a car's length. I thought it was going to be a lot worse than that. Pleasantly surprised.
Not as bad as I was expecting, and the brake upgrades that we've got planned should make a real difference here. That's the benchmark sorted for all the basic stuff, but now is the really important bit. How much faster will Charles send the Golf R around Curborough than I can in the GTI? It's a basic figure of 8 course with a rolling start of 30 miles per hour, which takes the R's rapid launch control out of the equation. We'll take all the help that we can get here.
There we go, that's 30 miles an hour achieved. Let's see the start line in 3, 2, 1, go. There we go, into the chicane. Up to the hairpin now. Nice rotation from the Golf. Ooh, there we go, through the final corner. And across the line. Oh, good fun that. What a lovely car this is.
Being the Carrera Cup GB champion he is, Charles leaves nothing on the table, using every inch of the track and sometimes a little bit more. Time for the GTI's humiliation.
My turn for a time lap. I saw Charles's run. It was a 28 seconds just over, and it looked really quick. I don't know how I'm going to get anywhere near that, particularly in a stock car, but let's just see how much time we need to make up. On the way to the line, 30 miles an hour, second gear, 3, 2, 1, and we're on it. Right, turn 1. Ooh, look at the amount of steering lock I'm having to put in. Come on. There we go. Take a little bit of the curb there. Shimmy it over to the left, power down. Whoa. Right, braking into a bit of a hairpin, nice and wide, and then try and clip it into the apex. God. Getting the power down isn't too hard actually, but it's just the steering lock that I'm having difficulties with. Here we go, run to the line. And what is it? I don't know. Let's got to find out the time, but that felt like a really good lap. Right, Charles, moment of truth. You did a 28.1. What did I do?
Well, Cam, from looking outside, it did look nice and tidy. I had you down at a 33.6.
You know what? That's a lot better than I was expecting. I thought because the age difference is so big, they're mechanically very different. I was expecting it to be around 8 to 10 seconds, but I put that down at about 5.5 seconds, right? That's not too bad.
Although, because I did a 28, it does mean between you and the car, we need to try and find about 20% more performance.
That sounds quite painful.
Obviously, from the outside, it did look very good. You guys have been doing a lot of modifications to make the car quicker, but I think a bit of driver coaching as well can just help you with a couple of lines, and hopefully that will get us much closer.
Now, we're going to get to that in a later episode, but next time, in episode 3, we're going to start some major work on our car. We're talking tyres, suspension and brakes to try and claw back some of that time that we've got to make up on the Golf R.
You'll want to subscribe for this because in the next episode, we'll take the car back to Pip at BRS Automotive and start fitting go faster bits to claw back the time. And because eBay has everything we need from second-hand OEM parts to high-end aftermarket components, we'll have no trouble finding everything we need to turn our GTI into a Golf R Beta. Remember, you can win this car. All you need to do is hit the link in the description, enter the competition, and you could be the owner of this very car. Yes, it may have been trounced by a Golf R today, but it'll be a completely different story once it's finished. Let's get to work.